Stay tuned, stay tuned, stay tuned. I'm here with the coach, John Brent.
And I'm here with the vet, Ian Griffin.
Man, it's a great day today. We're down here in south of Tyler at the Jump Talk. Can you believe it?
Jump Talk, the Bachman Homestead.
Yes.
Let's do it.
So it's a good day today. So, hey, I wanted to start out a little bit today on personal responsibility. Can you believe that, Coach?
Well, we need more of it. Even in this time and day and age, we definitely need more of it.
I agree. So I remember when I was in ninth grade, I failed algebra. I passed every 6 weeks, but I failed the midterm test the first semester. I bombed it so hard. They made me take the whole algebra class over. But in today's time, there will be people tempted to say, we need to rewrite the curriculum to make sure everybody passes, instead of me taking responsibility for bombing a test.
Absolutely.
So I just like to throw out a quote, Coach, before we get going here. And I'm going to read it to you because, I'm not as educated as everybody else, so I have to read sometimes. We must reject the idea that every time a law is broken, society is guilty rather than the law breaker. It is time to restore the American precept that each individual is accountable for his own actions. The guy who wrote that it's been over 40 years, and it's the great Ronald Reagan.
Absolutely.
Take responsibility for your own actions. Let's don't make society pay. So what are your thoughts on all that, Coach?
Well, first and foremost, if you don't take personal responsibility and you're always going to blame it on someone else, then there's no growth. There's no maturity as a person. I mean, if you make a mistake, and we're a very forgiving society, but what we like to do is we want to hear, hey, I made a mistake, I'm sorry, change behavior, move forward. But what we don't like, not just in society, but even as a parent, is a lie. And then you keep covering up with the lie, and you don't just take personal responsibility. And what I don't like is not just that, is you blame it on someone else. You take the blame and put it on society. Put it on the law itself, when in the case of kind of what you're talking about, if a person breaks the law, they know the law. We all know the law. Most of them, if you rob a bank, you're going to jail if you get caught. It's not that you were poor and you needed money.
Right.
So that's my take on it. Take personal responsibility and let's move on.
I agree. I personally think if a law enforcement officer breaks the law,
absolutely,
then hold him to the law. As simple as that. Hold him to the law. If an individual breaks the law and a law enforcement officer had to be more excessive because they refused to comply with the law, enforce the law. It's as simple as that. It's not rocket science.
I mean, it's some of the cases that we're dealing with in our society right now, with the Floyd issue and with the Blake issue. Both of the issues, let's go to the Floyd first. First of all, the officer was wrong.
Yep.
The officer, in my opinion, committed some type of murder. They're going to decide what type of murder that is, but he shouldn't have done that. That's just my opinion. But there would be no situation if the person had not put themselves in that situation prior to that. Now, I'm not downplaying what the officer did. What the officer did was absolutely incredible and absolutely horrendous. But most of the time we have these situations that come up with a law enforcement and a citizen. It's that the citizen are putting themselves in a situation of resisting arrest, running from the police, or committing a crime. If none of that would occur, there would be no situation that would come after it. I know it's a touchy subject, but you know what? Sometimes it needs to be discussed. And I think we have to take personal responsibility, not only from the person that got themselves in a situation that we're going to look at on film, like the officer in Floyd or the situation with Blake running around a vehicle, but what put the person in that beforehand is important, because without that, there is no confrontation.
Right. You just can't cut and dry and take a 2-minute segment out of something and say, okay, this is the case. You have to put all the stuff prior to that and all the stuff after that and all the stuff in between, in the different perspectives of what was going on. In reference to the one with Floyd, hey, there was an officer that used excessive force and it resulted in death. Charge the officer and let's be on with it. There was 3 other officers that were, 2 of them were less than 6 months, I believe. I might be wrong. and then you had the one using the excessive force who had been there a long time.
Sure.
So that dynamic, I fully comprehend and understand. That dynamic is a very challenging dynamic whatsoever. And but those 4 individuals are the ones who carry the weight of the wrongdoing. Society does not, at the end of the day.
Right.
Society didn't commit a crime. Society didn't break a law. Now, if there's some things that you don't want them to do, rewrite the law. But right after that, we banned we banned knees to the neck and chokeholds and all that other stuff. At the end of the day, a police officer used excessive force. Okay.
Yeah.
And they should know better than that part right there, excessive force. So I'll move from that, and I just want to talk about some statistics because there was 4 police officers involved in that one case that is called people to protest, which I understand that, people to riot and loot, which some of those came from all across the country, and some of them were paid protesters too, as we find out, and some things like that. Kind of the same thing when the Kavanaugh hearing was going on. We had people that were paid to ask questions, not people who really were serious to ask questions. But so in society, in the United States of America, we have actually 18,000, as of 2016, 18,000 federal, state, county, and local law enforcement agencies. A law enforcement agency can be up to 30,000 people, or it can be to a little bitty area that's got 1, 2 to less than 10. In 2018 statistics, and depending on which statistics you look at, one says there's 686,000 sworn in law enforcement officers, and there's another one that says there's over 800,000 in the United States of America. So for 4 individuals, we're going to reprieve the entire law enforcement system. And so I'll move on with the Blake case, the Jacob Blake case. In regards to there, and I'll read some pre-up on this here. In July, a warrant was issued for his arrest on charges 3rd-degree sexual assault, criminal trespass, and disorderly conduct. On August 23rd, a woman had filed a complaint, led to a 911 call that he was at her home, and they were pursuing a domestic complaint at the time. And then during that time, prior to the shooting, they tried to tase him twice, apparently resisting arrest. And then inside the vehicle is where he had the knife. And when he went around to the vehicle, he even said that he had a knife.
Yeah.
And a law enforcement officer shot him 7 times. Now, I will say, shooting somebody in the back 7 times is very excessive. Not a little excessive. That's very excessive. But I will say, if we just sit there and said, arrest me, we would never be in this, and he would be able to walk again. He wouldn't be a paraplegic right now. That's a fact.
And that's the touchy situation. Is neither one of us, and I haven't heard many people say that Floyd got what he deserved for that, and Blake got shot 7 times, and that's what he should have gotten. But we have a very touchy subject that's going on in our country right now, is that what led up to that, there has to be some type of personal responsibility, not only for the 2 people that we're talking about, but also for teaching of our kids and teaching of our fellow men and women that if there's a situation where you're going to be arrested, the police are not just going to, you start to resist or you start to run, they're not just going to say, okay, let them go. Yeah. You're going to be apprehended. And if you can just understand that they have a job, no matter how they act, you have a due process in this country.
Yeah.
If you're arrested for something you didn't do, then you have your due process. But you running doesn't mean they're just going to drop charges. They're just going to not file it at the courthouse. They're not going to come looking for you. They're not going to take you to the ground. They're just going to continue doing their job. So how does that help the situation? It actually puts you in a worse situation. And then it puts society in a worse situation because now we're having these conversations about defund the police and all this thing over 2 incidents that occurred. And yes, there's been more over time. But if you really look at the statistics, in which I have at the FBI Crime Lab, this is a very, very small thing that happens every year. It's an unarmed person shot by police for no reason.
Yeah, that last part is a hard one in the equation. And even the AG, he replied back on it. He said last year there were 10 incidences where a white officer shot a black individual. Out of those, 5 of them went unarmed.
Okay.
5 of them. And now, I don't know if
It's
that's
almost
true,
700,000 law enforcement officers.
somewhere between 686,000 to 800,000 law enforcement officers across America. There were 10 cases. That's according to the AG of the United States of America. I don't know if it's true, but I kind of trust that.
So we need to make sure that we understand that every life is important.
Definitely.
All life is important. So 2 people, 4 people, or even 10 people, it might not should happen. But that does not reflect on the other 685,990 people.
Right.
And if it does, then what we're doing is we're blaming society or our whole force for an issue with 10 bad apples out of 686,000. I don't have a calculator, but if you put a percentage to that, I guarantee you that's less than 1/4 of 1/2 of 1%.
Yep, that's small.
And so what we're doing is we are vilifying the whole police force. We're vilifying, in some cases, the white society because the officer's white and this gentleman was black, or these 2 gentlemen were, all because of 2 people committing a crime.
Yeah. Or, alleged crimes. We'll say that.
Sure.
Alleged crimes. And definitely with the second case, if the taser doesn't come out once, I think it's time to stop and just, hey dude, arrest me, here, how you do it. They teach us as soldiers when we go to Germany, and I know this is not Germany, but they tell you as soldiers that, hey, if you get a DUI, they're going to draw blood. They're not going to do a breathalyzer, they're going to draw blood.
Right.
And they said they will draw blood if they have to beat you down to draw blood or if you give blood. And so what they tell you as a soldier in Germany is when the police officer, the Polizei, pulls you over, what are you to do? When he says, I want to draw your blood. You go like this.
Yeah.
Which one do you want? Which one do you want? Now, does that solve all the cases? I do not believe it does. And does that solve misconceptions or preconceptions? Let's say that, preconceptions. No, that does not solve fear and phobia, and that does not solve somebody that's put in a position of power of overexerting that power. No, that does not. But when you have, like we just said, 10 last year out of 686,000 at the low scale, 686,000 law enforcement officers, 10. I just think at the end of the day, when a law enforcement officer overexerts themselves, let's take it to the house and let's punish them by the crime.
And the last thing I want to say on this, I've not met a person online, not met a person in person that says that if an officer goes overboard and has excessive force against anybody, black, white, Hispanic, it doesn't matter, that they shouldn't be fired, investigated, and if they did something wrong, charged and put in jail. But what I don't hear is anyone taking personal responsibility for what led up to that.
Exactly.
And I'm not saying that anyone is ever supposed to be a judge, jury, and executioner. But I'm saying that if to use deadly force, and if you use it wrong, then that person needs to be put in jail. But the person that got up to that, from what I understand with the Blake situation, and this is going by memory, there was a case or a charge against him for some type of sexual harassment or sexual charge or something against a person. He shows back up at her house. They call the police. They get there, try to arrest him, tase him, I want to say twice. He runs away to his vehicle. None of this shooting would have occurred if he didn't show back up, if he didn't just take the arrest when they did show up, because he wasn't supposed to be there. I don't know if you know this, but most people, if you have a crime against someone while there's a charge pending, you are not supposed to be around that person. I don't care who called or what happened.
Right.
And the third thing is, if they are tasing you, it's time to stop.
Yeah.
And if you continue to do that, you're showing some kind of strength that most people don't have. I don't know about you. I've never been tased, but the people that have been tased have told me,
no,
you don't want to go on.
It's no fun.
Okay.
I'll tell you this, is all your muscles lock up real quick on you. It's no fun.
So anyway.
Not that I've been tased in a criminal situation, but tased, yes. And it's not fun.
Well, I think we should look for more personal responsibility, not just in this case that we're talking about or any cases that we're talking about, but throughout the country. If we take personal responsibility for our own actions, do not only what is right, but what is best for everyone around us, and be morally better than we have been, everything will work out.
I agree. I think we would have less chaos than what's going on right now, to be honest.
More love, less chaos.
I'm down with that, Coach. I'm telling
Yes.
you. And, something I'm very serious about it is teaching with my children on personal responsibility. Because if you don't have personal responsibility, I guess you depend on everybody else to be responsible for you.
Right.
And that's where we're at in society now. And I do understand there's one other aspect that we didn't really hit. These are cases that happen, but they're also very media driven because that fits an agenda right now. And we know this. I mean, you don't have to be a rocket science to figure it out. When the big four media outlets that exclude the one come out there and they plaster their own news every day, and they don't plaster other things that are similar, but it doesn't fit that cookie cutter agenda that they're wanting to push right now. We probably wouldn't be here as bad if that wasn't. They say stoking the flames. I don't call it stoking the flames. I call it pouring jet fuel on the flames. Pretty much is what it is, And so I think they bear a piece of responsibility on it. Myself as the media as well, although they'll never claim it. They'll just say that they're doing their job. I just wish they would do a job, to be honest.
Yes.
So anyway, I think that was a pretty good wrap up on this. And I think at the end of the day, if you just take what Ronald Reagan said, that clears all the mud out. I don't think we need to have a fancy policy on it. Now, there are some things that I will say that in some of them, like in the Breonna Taylor case, I think the no-knock warrants, I'm like, yeah, I think that does kind of need to be relooked, or who's signing off on the warrant.
Well, I'm just going to come right out and step it on a limb and say I don't think it needs to be relooked or looked at again or whatever. I think it needs to be changed. I don't think that should be ever an issue where there's a no-knock warrant. That's just my opinion. Unless there's some kind of circumstance that's just a circumstance where you're going into a place that might be full of weapons and there's a some kind of situation, but that needs to be a separate warrant. It can't just be all the time or in one jurisdiction that every time we come in we have a warrant we can just kick a door in.
I think that it needs to be in cases of like somebody like El Chapo.
Sure.
Or something like that, okay?
Well, didn't they kick in Roger Stone's door or something?
They had helicopters and everything else, on that one there. And of course CNN was there because they didn't know about it.
The Breonna Taylor issue to me is a problem. Not only is it a civil issue, which I think they did finally settle a civil issue with the family this week.
It's $12 million is what they said.
I think it's unacceptable that not only is the officer fired, I don't think there's some kind of charges should have already happened. And I do think that it's taking too long. In the climate that we have now, it needs to be something that's handled quick. And if you don't put your best investigator on it, your best district attorney, or a person working in the district attorney office and the best person working at the Justice Department on that to get that done quickly, you didn't learn from Ferguson.
Well, I will say this is there's an extracurricular on there. The boyfriend shot. Now, because it was a no-knock warrant, he thought he was an intruder.
Absolutely. I mean, I would shoot.
Understandably so.
I would shoot if somebody starts kicking in my door,
Yeah.
yelling and screaming at night.
I agree.
What are you going to do?
And so that doesn't make it right or wrong. And in the heat of gunfire, I will say, when you have the heat of gunfire, there's challenges there.
We have to learn from these situations.
I agree on that one. And I think the no-knock warrant and the fact they were bringing up, so I don't know the law there, but they were bringing up also the fact that the warrant went straight from a certain level police officer to the judge. And I thought, hey, where's the police chief? Where's the deputy police chief? Somewhere in there that funnels them and goes, no, we're not doing that. Yeah, we agree with that. Maybe I'm wrong, but that's what's been reported. And so I'm kind of got some concern on that. The no-knock warrant, and how do we get a warrant or the authorization for a no-knock warrant all the way up to a judge, skipping a whole bunch of people in between.
And I know we might be running a little bit long, but one of the things I do want to say is I do not look down on the family. I do not look down on the attorney for getting a civil settlement done on this thing, even before there's charges, because one of the things is we have a perception in our society that OJ's guilty. They didn't prove him guilty in the criminal case. But all of us felt a little bit better, including that family, that he is going to be held responsible civilly, and he owes a debt to that family because there was enough as not I think they call it beyond the evidence was strong enough to show that he was possibly culpable, and that's something that should have been taken care of. I like that they went ahead and got this done, even though to me the district attorney's office is dragging their feet. I do not look down on the Breonna Taylor's family, and I've heard some people say that, and I think it's wrong. You do what you need to do, you get what you can get, And, you know, I hope all of us, I don't care what color you are, will continue to follow this case until it comes to the end. And like I said, they might not get, no, actually something you said earlier, they might not get the exact outcome they want, but I think there needs to be some kind of outcome that we all can look at and go, you know what, we understand it.
I will say on all three of the cases, at the end of the day, there's two people that families have lost them forever. And then there's one that the young man will never walk again. Now, whether he should be in jail or not, that's to be decided later. But he will never walk again, most likely, unless some good science and medical medicine comes in here. So at the end of the day, as my wife has said this, when we were stationed somewhere else and a young man died, she goes, the young man didn't just die. There was a young man that killed him also. Mm-hmm. And she goes, both of those families have lost boys because the one went away for over 20, 30 years and the other one is gone forever. And both families have lost a way of life no matter what. And I will say in these cases here, all of them have lost their way of life, and that's just tragic. And
it is.
And I just think that personal responsibility, we could weed down some of this, because we didn't need all the extra baggage. You know, things that happened in Minneapolis, we didn't need the world's baggage with it. It's nice that we brought it along, I guess, but all the burning and stuff, and let's just have personal responsibility down there, and let's put the police officer who did it, you know, let's go put him through the process, put him in jail, and on and on and on. You know, so that's just my thoughts on it. So.
Sure. And the last part about the personal responsibility, we can't just say personal responsibility with Floyd and personal responsibility with Blake if they would have never gotten there. Yes, the situation was that. But also the personal responsibility in the Breonna Taylor case from the officers, and also from the judge, and also from the police that got the warrant. There needs to be personal responsibility. I would love for somebody to come out in this case once they can and speak and say, look, we made a mistake because you paid $20 million. Sooner or later, the case is going to come criminally, you know, to a halt and over. And at that time, you can really speak. I understand they can't speak right now. But somebody in some of these situations needs to come out and say, personal responsibility. We made a mistake. That's just what we want to hear in society. We're a society that will forgive if you come out and say it. I'm waiting for somebody to come out and say it, not just in that case, maybe in some of these other ones from the family of some of these people. But there's one thing that we don't do is we take personal responsibility. We just do the blame game.
So, Coach, I think at the end of the day, Ronnie Reagan himself, you know, he had the foresight to understand this, and I believe stuff like this was, in order for him to perpetuate that conversation and to say that, had to be going on back then as well.
Sure.
40 years ago is what drove him to talk about it, and so in some things, I think, I hate to say it, and 40 years later from now, we'll be talking about it again. Somebody will be, maybe not me. And because personal responsibility goes a long way. I just think that's a good thing to kind of close on as old Ronald Reagan itself.
Absolutely. Love Ronald Reagan. But in the day that we're at right now, I just wish there was a little bit more understanding from both sides.
Yeah.
It seems like you have to pick a side. You don't have to pick a side. What you have to do is pick what's right, what's morally correct. And no matter what, we want to have personal responsibility from law enforcement, from the criminals taking their own responsibility, and the family of the criminals that do commit a crime. They're not bad people for life. Maybe they made a bad decision. Maybe they made 10 years of bad decisions. But they do not deserve to die at the hands unless there's, the society comes and says this person gets death. Unless the officers feel that they are in a life and death situation. And in these three, I don't know.
I don't either.
I don't see it that way.
So, Coach, I will say this is, these are our opinions, and everybody has different opinions. And we hope you put them on there because nobody's opinion is better than anybody else's. It just happens to be our opinions.
Absolutely.
So put them on there. We want to hear about it because maybe you open my eyes and I understand something a little bit different.
We need more conversation in the country. So give us conversation. There's some comments we got last week that weren't something when we wanted to hear. But, hey, everybody has the right to say it.
That's right. I agree. So stay tuned to us as you stay tuned to society. And from the coach.
And to the vet.
Stay tuned, stay tuned, stay tuned.
Don't fall.